Hello and welcome to the This Works For Me Virtual Summit. I'm your host, Fernpate Watson. I am the Director of the Faculty Development Center at Murray State University. Are you looking for a strategy to help you build engaging and flexible teams? Well, today's guest, Dr. Eugene Kowch, will provide you with some strategies to do so. Dr. Kowch, thank you very much for taking the time to share with us today.
It's a pleasure being with you.
Great. Now I'm going to open the floor to you for a moment to tell us a little bit about yourself, who you are, where you're from, and what you do.
Thank you. I am chair of the Workland School of Education Leadership Policy and Governance Group at the University of Calgary in Alberta, Canada, somewhat north of you. I have experience as immediate past president of AECT, which is a major international professional association. I was elected to that. I've also been a high school teacher, a principal of schools, a deputy superintendent of schools in Canada, and I'm a former senior leader of Unical Chevron energy company, global development group that did mega project work. That was my first career. So yeah, I've got a lot of different experience in both industry and education, about 15 years in each.
Yes, I know it was a little bit challenging for you to sum all of that up because I know you have a wealth of experience, Dr. Kowch, and I'm really looking forward to delving into your strategy today. In fact, the title of your strategy is Leading Flexible, Engaging Teams When Everything is Changing Around Everyone. Now, help us understand what impressed you to start using this strategy.
Well, 25 years ago, when I was a young engineer, I was charged to lead an investment team where part of a very large energy company was to evaluate itself and sell itself. The organization had a formula for team creation that was required, and it was the usual thing. You would allocate a finance person, or a reservoir engineering, production engineering person, a legal person, and a team lead, and you'd get the job done. It wasn't always the best people assigned to the right project at the right time, and how they got along was not considered. This was the formula, and it's still used by everyone today. You find the expertise and allocate it, and away you go. Engaging that team was difficult because they had to work hard together, and then they'd sell their properties and end up out of work. So it was a challenge, and I had done a lot of it. But halfway through this project, the price of oil changed and the government changed, and suddenly the properties were worth keeping. So instantly we recommended not to sell. That was accepted, and the team was immediately disbanded. And I thought, oh, that was a lot of work for good reason. But a year later, we had another project even bigger, and I was charged to strike another team. And I thought, if only we could have kept the learning from that group going, and I had to start from scratch all over. So I made a deal to myself. I need to know more about this leadership stuff, and I ended up going to university and taking my teaching degrees. I wanted to help the education system, and I studied teamwork. I did a PhD on it, and I've been developing for 15 years the principles of effective, flexible teams, a little bit different way of looking at organization. So that's what I've been up to.
Wow, and it seems as if, based on your experience, you really were committed to finding out how you could really make teams better and create teams in a more efficient and effective way. So after you found out about how to do so, how has that strategy actually worked for you in terms of applying it later on?
It's worked really well. Some of the strategies I've learned about team development as networks of relationships and not pyramid structures of expertise has really helped me pull people together quickly to do amazingly large projects and small in the academy, in school systems, and in my own work, research teams, and on committees. And I'm going to give you an example of a research committee where I applied some of these principles as a leader.
Okay, definitely. Go ahead with that example.
Okay, well, I'm trying to keep it kind of anonymous because it's a work in progress, and many people in my own university don't know this particular committee's gone through these changes. So it's a grants committee that is university-wide. It's allocates millions of dollars to very good researchers wanting money to do very good things. And it's a big task, big committee, and I'm the chair of it. Have been on the committee for 10 years and chairing it for 3. The committee's now evolving, and I'll tell you a little bit about that. But the deans, originally the deans kept reassigning faculty reviewers to this committee because they had to, as a rule, and that's what they did. So we had every year turnover of the committee members. This caused, it was hard to get to know each other. Our skill development wasn't consistent. People would come and go. It's a lot of learning. It wasn't a lot of fun, and no continuous learning was happening. We couldn't remember. People weren't around long enough to remember the same type of application 3 years ago, etc. So it was very process heavy and not very much fun. So creating a team that learned the terms and changing terms of reference all the time for grants across 14 faculties, building strong relationships on that team mattered. We had to find a way to do that better, I thought. So over the last 5 years, we have, as chair, I've started doing a few things. One of the biggest challenges was people didn't want to sit on such a hardworking committee because it was just hard work. And we had to find a better way. And I suggested research services, and our vice president of research suggested some ways to reconfigure this, and we tried them, and it's working. So I can tell you a bit more about them if you like.
Yes, go ahead. Tell us a little bit also about what has been the response of the teams that you have been developing, exactly in terms of some of the strategies that you used.
Okay, well, I'll tell you about the strategies first, a little bit story there and some examples, and then how the team responded to that and the university. So the first thing we had to do was define a clear purpose and outcomes and goals for this particular team. We knew we had to vet, review applications, but we weren't really sure about the decision-making process other than the usual collegial process, which was, we thought we should clarify that a little bit more. So I'll show you later that we did. We also, when you set up a flexible team, you need to find an attractor, something that pulls team members. Think of team members as stars all over the universe of the university, and you need to pull them together, attract them to something so they'll work together beyond just getting the work done. And I had to come up with that, so I did. We needed to find common understandings. That's number 3. Develop common understandings about the process of the team. And in this team, you're not going to be there forever, but it's important work, and you might have to do some mentoring. Also, the leader-follower roles of the chair need to shift. You can't just have one person all the time, because you get applications from your own faculty you shouldn't sit on. So I started a co-chair, and I switch out chairs randomly on the committee if I'm unavailable or traveling. And this is building up the capability of the team to see both leadership and followership, because I see everyone as a leader on it, and that's important concept in leadership. Developing a strong relation-based team. Out of the research I've done, there were 7 factors. First, you establish the clear roles for team members with them. Like, this is what you can do, and this is sort of our role on the team. On a reviewer panel, it's kind of general. We all review, but I'll tell you how we did some of that role definition. Second thing is defining and establishing a professional ethos. So what do you care about? Like, do we care about the applicant? Do we care about the university? Is it all about the money? No, of course. It's about the researcher profile. And so I'll tell you about how what we settled on. We developed an ethos, though, and sometimes you don't do that consciously in leadership. You just kind of assume, well, we're doing the right thing. But you have to state that on each team, because different teams have different ethos for different reasons. The third thing is assure the team can generate information where none exists. So I'll tell you about how we're doing that. Fourth thing, assure the team can manage complex tasks. So there's complicated things happen with grant reviews and grants and applications, and we need to figure out how to get the information in, assessed, meet, decide, have the information go back to people, give extension requests their due, everything else. So Managing complex tasks is necessary, and we didn't really have that before. We just did the work of deciding, threw it at research services, and they handled it. But we decided to take control of that whole situation a little bit better, so the feedback was more helpful to people rather than just, you didn't get the grant. So that's a lot more work, but we did decide that we could manage all that and with research services, and they liked it. They've added staff to it. We wanted to assure cohesion among team members. We would just come with bleary eyes and have read a ton of things. Good intentions, good people, but we were tired and not that cohesive. We didn't even know each other, and because we flipped out every year and only met 4 times a year for the big events, hard to know. So assuring cohesion is something I'll show you how we worked on below. And then assure individuals can rise above self-interest. That's the biggest one on a network. When your team is built of relations, a network of relationships, and not the structure of your job, your function, my role as hierarchical power as chair. But when it's a network, it's kind of almost a social collegial network, you need to be able to rise above self-interest. And that was our biggest challenge, is when you get something from your own faculty you know a lot about, and you know the detail, but you can't really do that. You have to be objective and look at the principles of research and the impact and the argumentation and whether it's going to lead to subsequent degrees and help the researcher's profile, everything. Those are universals in research evaluation, but we tended to throw in our own opinion from our own disciplines very often back in the day, and we decided, no, we need to rise above self-interest and find a way just to do the work above the disciplines and our own beloved faculties. And that remains a challenge, but we named it. And that's one of the things team network principles say you have to do, is you have to name yourself. You have to be well aware of what your self-interests are and put them, like my former dean said, take your self-interest and put it outside the door in a little box, and we're going to have the meeting, and then you can go get it later. It actually works. So yeah, those were the principles.
Right, and so you're going to get a little deeper into a couple of these principles as well?
Sure, I can give you an example if you like. All right. Well, on this particular committee, we revisited the goals of the committee and found different focus, consistency in decision making. We wanted to make sure we were making the same decisions year over year in the same way. We wanted to maximize grant impact, make sure researchers are getting somewhere with what they're doing, and find a way for recording that. Allocating reviewers, not according to their discipline, so medicine guys only get the medicine ones, but interdisciplinary allocations. That was a challenge to sell, because it's like, oh, I don't know anything about psychology, what should I do? But it's research, and we all sit on interdisciplinary grant committees at the federal level, internationally. We know how that works, and we thought, we'll try that. So that's part of revisiting the goals. This faster decision turnaround was also another goal. So we revisited the goals. Number one, what was the attractor? Okay, well, we looked at what's going to draw people to this, and we talked to each other. We found that it's a blend of personal career development, so it's good to be on a committee like this because it's a vice president's committee, and but it's also good for me as a research proposer to see all these different grants come through. So that is a value, and you have to name it. It's self-serving, but that's why people participate. It increases engagement. So we make sure now that if you're not getting value from the process, say you believe you know all there is about grant applications, there's not a lot for you on this committee in terms of learning other than just pure service. And if that's important, good enough. But most people want a blend of personal career development and building their own research grantsmanship ability. They also like to keep up on the new terms of reference that affect this committee, their federal, national, provincial. So that was the attractor. We made it clear. If those things aren't offered to faculty, they're not going to want to participate. So we make sure we see it in what we do. The third thing is the process, the thing I told you about before. We have to realize the team isn't going to last forever, and that we built a staggered roster so we can have people who've been there for a couple of years working with people who haven't. So there's some sort of memory and mentorship going on. You don't come in cold, do your time. By the time you learn, I'm not saying we don't know what we're doing, but you really know what you're doing the fifth time around compared to the first time or the first year. So that's helped people feel confident, and they just make decisions better. So that's good. We also established a co-chair system I told you about, where I step out and other people come in, and where I step away, especially if there's a disciplinary conflict my own faculty is applying. This helped a lot. And we also gave people the opt-out. Well, I'll tell you about that too. But we also let people call a friend. So if you needed some disciplinary expertise and there was something very technical, there was we set up representatives we could call in other faculties, like if it was a cancer research thing and we really needed to know the social dimensions of therapy better, we could talk to someone over there and clarify. And that was, everyone likes that, because you make a better answer when the expertise isn't in the room. So that was good. That was team processing. Team development itself, I remember those 5 things I said, or 6. As far as roles go, we set up a member orientation. This is what we do, and this is kind of how we do it. Process flow, decision making, how we solve disputes, and mentorship are made clear as duties. So the roles are clear now. You've got a mentorship role, a team decision making, and an individual assessment role. So that was good. Ethos. Well, we talked about this for some time, and we said a kind, fair, and consistent approach to help researchers move their programs forward. That really has helped us a lot, because if it's a one-off request that isn't moving a program forward, or someone's going for a particular pot of money and it has nothing to do with their research program, we hesitate a little. And this has helped us make, we think, better judgments. And we're hearing that from the people who win and don't win the grants. We're hearing that this extra feedback and logic is very helpful. So that's good ethically. Ethos. The third thing is generating information. A kind, fair, generating information. Sorry, our team leads with research services. Connect. So the University Research Service Infrastructure, which is a very big organization, helps us with processing grant terms of reference, extension requests, group applications. They handle a lot of the office stuff very well. And we found they help us find new criteria to make our awarding more effective and in line with federal standards, because we very much in Canada have a federal granting system and not much of a provincial one, so they come federally. So we try to align local university level grants with federal grants. That we've done. So yeah, we can generate all that kind of information on terms of reference in particular that we couldn't before. Manage complex tasks. That university service team has expanded, and they distribute everything. They follow up on grants. They ask for reports now from the grantors, and they handle my communication from the committee to back and forth to applicants. It saves a ton of time. It's great. Cohesion, we added pre-meeting food and conversation, couple social events. We want to do more public grant information sessions to talk about the grants to the university instead of just reviewing. People want to know, what is it going to take to get it through, you guys? And we're seen now as teachers more than evaluators, and it's like we go and have these seminars, and it's really good for us to build connections with each other. So we're more cohesive, I think. There's also an option to stay with the team. If you think you want to stay longer and your dean's okay with it, you can, and that's really good for the organization. Rising above self-interest, we re-emphasized rank, de-emphasized rank. We used to have a kind of a rank, an implicit rank, professor versus assistant voice hearing. And we made it clear that voices are all the same in the room. We just had to. We respect, of course, rank, but it's more experience and knowledge to the problem and argument. So democratic decision-making on grant approvals mattered more to the committee than perceived position, including the chair's role. I hold back now from offering opinion and more facilitate the decision-making process and add information. I review all the grants myself, but I've pulled myself out of actually being part of that meat and potatoes. So they work with each other and accountable more to each other. Rising above self-interest too, we allow them to opt out when the grant is in their own faculty or when they feel uncomfortable with, for any reason. They may be related to someone, they can pull out. Also, they have partnership agreements. Anyway, if there's any sense of conflict of interest, people can just step aside. And that really feels good because we know no one's no one's got those worries on top of it. So those were the big conditions. I'll just repeat them very quickly. We've clearly found our purpose, found the attractor for people on the committee. We looked at the projects as project-based. We're trying to do their best job with the people we've got, and we're willing to call friends and build our network out. We use those 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 7 principles of defining roles, ethics, generating information. We're handling the processes of the complex paperwork better. A lot of this is online now. We assure cohesion among team members and encouragement and process encouragement to rise above self-interest. So all those things are kind of an enactment of these principles that we're trying to use, and it's really been great.
Yeah, and speaking of great, it really seems as if these strategies are very effective. What has been the response of the team members to the use of these strategies?
Well, the strategies themselves aren't all as transparent as I see them as.
Right, then, that's what I was wondering too.
Yeah, no, but generally people are comfortable. They're making more generous decisions and a little less technical. You know, sometimes we can go, if we're in a structural hierarchy, this leadership language, but if we're in a structural hierarchy with roles and functions tied together in a vertical dimension, we tend to do what we do in our box, hand it to the next box and walk away. We're doing a lot less of that now. We're looking at, was it a good decision? Do you feel good about this? And not tie ourselves up in knots on technical details that might apply to one discipline or field that would derail us. We look at it, is this a good decision among all the other decisions? And that feels good. And it makes it faster, actually. We're making faster decisions as well. So they like the speed and the cadence of the efficiency of the meetings. They're not as long. They're half as long and we're doing twice the work. More admin support is meaning, for me, a lot less work with paper and administration and a lot more work with the team. And that's great. And research services has given us more. The prize is more grants to look at coming up, and federal ones too. So it feels good that we're building something with that kind of capability, and we have no problem filling positions. The minute a call goes out, we have more than enough people wanting to serve. So that's very some good. Of the problems we talked about that were vexing, and they seem to be solved at the moment. You never know, something could change, but for now.
That's very good. So let me ask you, if there are, for those of our viewers who might be interested in using some of these strategies, but they're a little bit hesitant or they're not sure where to start, what would you say to them?
I would say when you start looking at building a team, instead of doing the usual committee thing, which we have to do by policy anyway, but you can have the structure of the committee, but it can operate better. Think of it as a network of relationships. So expert teams of assigned experts, there's never enough expertise. Consider an open team where you can pull expertise in and focus on what you have to do and not just on the technical natures of decision making. That's something we tend to do a lot. When grant applications, for example, shifted one term all to social sciences, we had to pull in some new people that were familiar with some of the more esoteric social science angles that we were getting proposed, and that helped us a lot. We made great decisions, and the system was okay with that. Second thing is start with an idea that we have our jobs, our real jobs as faculty. We could do project and teamwork without overloading when it runs well and it serves our interests, attracts us. It's good for your career and it feels good at the end of the day. And I really believe, I know the teams I sit on some teams that aren't quite like this, and it's a little more taxing. So when we're looking at quite a busy professional life, better teams makes for better lives. Mm-hmm. See your team as temporal too. You're not going to be there forever, and it's not part of your identity. They're different identities focused on getting the work done, and you come and go when it's time. And our deans have allowed for that now, which is very, very nice. Relationships matter, collective decision-making matters, and know your ethos. You know, if you're there to assess and give money, and or are you there to help build careers and research programs? Subtle difference, but it helps for everyone to have the common understanding. And some people opt out when they go, look, I'm not here to help other people's careers. It's like, okay, then we'll just find someone else. So, and I say, humorously, but the ability to reallocate people who are not content is important. Just as they opt in, they can opt out.
Wow.
Those are the considerations that I find are enjoyable team building strategies.
Yes. Thank you very much for sharing that. And for our viewers, are there any resources that you would recommend that for them to review to help them?
Well, one thing behind, this is a simplified version of an awful lot of research on organization development. Behind it all is change management. And one person I find my doctoral students really enjoy reading about, my colleagues, you're managing change when you're looking at a team that's capable and flexible. Because you have to respond to the outside world all the time. So John Cotter writes on change. Just Google Jay Cotter out of Harvard, and he's got principles for leading change, an eight-step process. It really resonates. People love that. And I've got some articles I've listed here I'll share with you on developing next generation teams and next generation organizations, because there are parts of organizations that do function this way and need to. And that's the new world with AI and data, big data informing our decision making. We're going to be making more collective decisions and handling a lot less data. Machines are going to learn. They're learning how to handle our data for us. So professionals like us are probably going to be sitting at the decision table more and more often. And some of these articles talk about how you want to structure a professional work. In my case, it's in the leadership group and in teaching and learning education faculty.
Wow.
So yeah, those are some readings, and I'm available.
Yeah, and I will be providing the link to those resources. And I will check them out myself too, and I would encourage you, our viewers, to check them out. So, Dr. Kowch, in the final minute or so of this conversation, could you leave our viewers with an encouragement or a challenge?
Yeah, 30 years at this. The things that made you want to be an academic are the same things that'll make for a fun, interesting team. You know the graduate supervision committees that work and don't work. Those principles actually are embedded in good leadership, and it means not being too strong or too weak of a leader. Leaders follow, followers lead, sharing leadership. My challenge is try to build a relation-based team in your university that isn't all policy and function, but more focused on kind of each other and some of these common principles, and you just might find it's more fun, faster, and more engaging for people. So I would say build your next generation network team instead of a committee, and you might be surprised.
Wow, well said. Dr. Kowch, thank you so much for sharing with us today. And to our viewers, thank you very much for taking the time to listen to this conversation. I would encourage you to share it with others, and we look forward to seeing you in the next episode of this virtual summit. See you soon.